did get a chance to go back, it wouldn't be out of a desire to live in that past. If I went into the past, I'd go just 20 years back. So I could find a teenage boy in the basement of his parents' brick house, thinking long thoughts as he played the same guitar lick over and over again on his little Stratocaster, wondering how he could belong in this world. Wondering if his intellectual curiosity means he'll never fit in. Wondering if his last name will be a stumbling block for the rest of his life. Wondering what it means when he sometimes feels a certain way about young men he sees in the hall at school. If it means he'll never wear the uniform, never be accepted, never know love. If I found him and told him what was ahead, would he believe me? I can picture it if I could put my arm around him and tell him that he was going to see the world and serve his country. That he would not only find belonging in his hometown, but be entrusted by its citizens with the duty of leading it and shaping it. That he would have a hand in transforming the neighborhoods he knew as a boy, where he wondered if this city was his own. To tell him that he'll be all right. More than all right. To tell him that one rainy April day, before he even turns 40, that on that day when he announces his campaign for president, he'll do it with his husband looking on. How can you live that story and not believe that America deserves our optimism, deserves our courage, and deserves our hope? My name is Pete Buttigieg. They call me Mayor Pete. I am a proud son of South Bend, Indiana, and I am running for President of the United States.
In northern Indiana, where the St. Joe River turns towards Lake Michigan, is an American city, a place called South Bend, where the son of a first-generation immigrant and fifth-generation Hoosier grew up in the shadows of shuttered factories, where he later returned home serving as mayor.
We're going to lay aside old habits and old divisions,
creating opportunity.
The city partnered with an organization to build more affordable housing.
We're excited to see a neighborhood change right in front of our eyes.
Representing everyone.
South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg responding to Governor Mike Pence's stance on LGBT protections in Indiana.
We're open for business and we're open to everyone.
Helping bring his city back to life. It's where he enlisted to defend our country, learning no matter how great our differences, they stop at the flag on our shoulders. From this experience, a big idea was formed.
I am a proud son of South Bend, Indiana, and I am running for President of the United States.
A politics not about who we reject, but how we bring everyone along.
We're from the Democratic Party. Our job is to tell you that we stand in solidarity with everybody who is for justice, for freedom.
One that won't be shaped by looking to yesterday, but by our common future.
This is what America looks like.
Yes.
People of every race and creed and age and gender. And this is what democracy looks like.
Public service is about helping people in their everyday lives.
Hello, my name is Jim, and I'm a volunteer with Mayor Pete's campaign.
And this campaign is about real change to deliver the help and hope we need.
We appreciate your support, ma'am. You have a good day.
This isn't a story about one place or one person. It's our story. Our shared vision for the country we love. And it only happens if we act. Together we will turn the page.
As the youngest guy in the campaign, what do you think about that? That this party that's so young-looking is embracing the two oldest people?
Well, I suppose you could run and succeed at any age, but I think the really important thing is, are we focusing on the future or are we tied up in the politics of the past? And I think at a moment like this, in order to govern, but also in order to win, we got to be focused on the future. Definitely in order to govern, because we're dealing with cybersecurity threats, global health risks, the economy changing in the era of technology.
but also in order to win the election. Most of the folks I talk to mainly just want to be sure we beat Donald Trump. And if you think about it for a minute, every single time that my party has captured the White House in the last 50 years, it's been with a candidate who is looking to the future, new to national politics, and opening the door to a new generation.
I think that was a very clever answer, Mayor Pete, mentioning all those things old people don't understand. And that's... And I gotta say, that's why I like you. You're good.
I am asking you to picture that first day the sun comes up in this country and Donald Trump is no longer the President of the United States. A happy thought for sure, an end to the chaos and the corruption and the tantrums and the tweets, but what comes next? The sun's going to come up over a country even more divided and torn up over politics than we are today, with crises that still require urgent action.
As you know, to serve as President of the United States, all of you know this, you have to be at least 35 years old. So, Mayor Buttigieg, you just qualified. You're 37, the youngest candidate in this field. Standing next to you is the oldest candidate, Bernie Sanders, at age 77. Should voters take into consideration age when choosing a presidential candidate?
I don't care how old you are. I care about your vision. But I do think it matters that we have a new generation of leaders stepping up around the world. Leaders like I actually think it's good that the Prime Minister of New Zealand's gotten a lot of attention in Democratic debates. She's masterful. She is younger than I would be when I take office. This is the kind of trend America might be leading instead of following, but only if it's actually backed by the right vision. And we can have great presidents at any age. What I will say is we need the kind of vision that's going to win. We cannot have a vision that amounts to back to normal. The only reason we got this president is that normal didn't work. We have to be ready to take on this president. And by the way, something that hasn't been talked about as much tonight, take on his enablers in Congress. You know, when David Duke ran for Congress, ran for governor, the Republican Party 20 years ago ran away from him. Today, they are supporting naked racism in the White House, or at best silent about it. And if you are watching this at home, and you are a Republican member of Congress, consider the fact that when the sun sets on your career, and they are writing your story of all the good and bad things you did in your life, the thing you will be remembered for is whether in this moment, with this president, you found the courage to stand up to him, or you continue to put party over country.
Mayor, I am so sorry to hear that your father, Joseph, passed away on Sunday. I'm very sorry to hear that. Obviously, you know that my father passed as well. How did he feel about your decision to run for president?
He was proud. It's one of the last things we talked about when I was getting ready to go do the launch. I told him I hoped I would make him proud, and he was on a ventilator by then, but around it, he mouthed the words, "You will." And we had a notepad so we could still communicate in the last. Sorry, this is pretty fresh.
It's hard.
And by the way, I really admire the way that you have dealt with losing your father. It's a territory of loss that I'm kind of exploring for the first time. But as I'm sure you found, and I've begun to find too, you hear from all these people he touched. He was a professor, so I hear from his students, his colleagues, and you begin to realize just how many. It's almost like you get a new family. Like I have new siblings in all of his students, who, you know, I was shaped by him in one way, and they were shaped by him in another. But you know, he was proud. I'm here. I thought hard about coming here, but I'm here because I knew he would want me to be. So wherever he is, I don't know if you get ABC over there, but hopefully he's.
They do. They do.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and I am very sorry. You're an interesting Democratic. Yeah. You are. You're an interesting voice. I like some of the stuff.
You're also very calming.
Yes.
We got to talk about one other thing, because the Republican Party likes to cloak itself in the language of religion. Now, our party doesn't talk about that as much, largely for a very good reason, which was we are committed to the separation of church and state, and we stand for people of any religion and people of no religion. But we should call out hypocrisy when we see it. And for a party that associates itself with Christianity, to say that it is okay to suggest that God would smile on the division of families at the hands of federal agents, that God would condone
putting children in cages, has lost all claim to ever use religious language again.
Vice President, many of your colleagues on stage support free college. You do not. Why not?
Sure. So college affordability is personal for us. Chasten and I have six-figure student debt. I believe in reducing student debt. It's logical to me that if you can refinance your house, you ought to be able to refinance your student debt. I also believe in free college for low and middle income students for whom cost could be a barrier. I just don't believe it makes sense to ask working class families to subsidize even the children of billionaires. I think the children of the wealthiest Americans can pay at least a little bit of tuition. And while I want tuition costs to go down, I don't think we can buy down every last penny for them. Now, there's something else that doesn't get talked about in the college affordability debate. Yes, it needs to be more affordable in this country to go to college. It also needs to be more affordable in this country to not go to college. You should be able to live well, afford rent, be generous to your church and Little League, whether you went to college or not. That's one of many reasons we need to raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour.
The next question comes from Zachary, age 9.
Oh, wow.
And this is a really touching question. He says, "Thank you for being so brave. Would you help me tell the world I'm gay too? I want to be brave like you."
Wow.
Well, Zachary, if you're here and you want to give a wave, let me know. Hey! Well, Zachary, are you going to come right up? All right. Hey, all right. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is for me? Thank you. Did you make it? Zachary just gave me something he made. I'm going to be wearing it tonight. Thanks very much for that. Well, I don't think you need a lot of advice from me on bravery. You seem pretty strong. To see you, it took me a long time to figure out how to tell even my best friend that I was gay, let alone to go out there and tell the world. And to see you willing to come to terms with who you are in a room full of 1,000 people, thousands of people you've never met, that's really something. So let me tell you a couple things that might be useful. The first thing is that it won't always be easy. But that's okay, because you know who you are. And that's really important, because when you know who you are, you have a center of gravity that can hold you together when all kinds of chaos is happening around you. That's the first thing I want you to know. The second thing I want you to know is that you'll never know who's taking their lead from you, who's watching you, and deciding that they can be a little braver because you have been brave. When I was trying to figure out who I was afraid that who I was might mean that I could never make a difference. And what wound up happening instead is that it's a huge part of the difference I get to make. I never could have seen that coming. And you'll never know whose life you might be affecting right now, just by standing here, right now. There's a lot of power in that. And the last thing I want you to know is, even if I can't promise it'll always be easy, I can promise you that I'm going to be rooting for you. And I think there's a whole bunch of people here who are going to be rooting you every step of the way. I'm really impressed. And thanks for that. That's really kind. I think you already got it together. So I'm excited to see what you're going to do as a leader.
Republicans in Congress have already started investigating Vice President Biden's son, Hunter. Mayor Buttigieg, do you think that there's a danger for the Democratic Party to nominate a candidate who is still under the threat of investigation?
No. And we're not going to let them change the subject. This is not about Hunter Biden or Vice President Biden or any Biden. This is about an abuse of power by the president. Look, the vice president and I and all of us are competing, but we've got to draw a line here. And to be the kind of president, to be the kind of human being who would seek to turn someone against his own son, who would seek to weaponize a son against his own father, is an unbelievably dishonorable thing that is just one more example of why we as a party have to be completely united in doing whatever it takes at the end of the day to make sure that this president does not get a second term.
Last time that you were here, I was so impressed with the way you were talking about the middle of the country, because obviously you're from South Bend. Yeah. In the past few weeks, you've been traveling, speaking. You're really gaining a lot of momentum. I've seen you on Fox News. You're going and speaking to the other side of the aisle. You're speaking to people in red states in the middle of the country. Do you think that's partially why you're gaining so much traction, is instead of ignoring people in the middle of the country, you're trying to speak to them as well?
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, how can you win? An election is supposed to be about our whole country, the whole thing. And we can't just concentrate on those areas where people, for the most part, already agree with us. You know, growing up in Indiana, a place where lots of people had very different political views than I did, I also learned that I could earn respect, not so much by pretending to be something I wasn't, but by explaining in good faith why I believe what I believe to people who maybe believe differently. And so even if they have a different view on a certain issue or a somewhat different set of values, if they know that at least what you have to say is coming from a place of values, I think you get a lot of credit for that. I was a little surprised that I'm the only one who's been on Fox so far, because there are so many viewers who may never hear what our party has to say at all if we're never going on those channels and explaining what we believe.
They will be. I think they're all going to go over there pretty soon. Not to Hannity, but to talk to the rational ones.
Right. Many of your colleagues on stage support free college. You do not. Why not?
Sure. So college affordability is personal for us. Chasten and I have six-figure student debt. I believe in reducing student debt. It's logical to me that if you can refinance your house, you ought to be able to refinance your student debt. I also believe in free college for low and middle income students for whom cost could be a barrier. I just don't believe it makes sense to ask working class families to subsidize even the children of billionaires. I think the children of the wealthiest Americans can pay at least a little bit of tuition. And while I want tuition costs to go down, I don't think we can buy down every last penny for them. Now, there's something else that doesn't get talked about in the college affordability debate. Yes, it needs to be more affordable in this country to go to college. It also needs to be more affordable in this country to not go to college. You should be able to live well, afford rent, be generous to your church and Little League, whether you went to college or not. That's one of many reasons we need to raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour.
You know, you're the only military veteran in this. But it seems like America cares less about that than they used to. You'd be the first one with military service to be elected since the first President Bush. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I should phrase a question.
And I think that's the... No, but look, I mean, that's the kind of experience that I think is going to be... Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, here you got a president, right, who will thump his chest, throw himself in military parade, and then turns his back on the troops. I mean, the latest was minimizing traumatic brain injury. If you know anything about what has happened to troops in the post-9/11 wars, you know that, and one thing I can tell you about traumatic brain injury is it can be a lot more serious than bone spurs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I honestly think you would do very well in a debate with Donald Trump. I do. But All right, I know you got to go. I'm going to ask you one last question, and I know I nag people about this, and maybe they're tired of it, but I laid it out last week in a way I've never laid it out before, but all down the line. I don't think if Trump loses, he's going to concede. Scenario, you win. You are President-elect Pete. We're still calling you Pete. And you win, but Trump says there are irregularities and he can't give up the office because it's a deep state hoax. What do you do?
Well, it's going to be a little awkward when Chasten and I are moving into the White House, but at the end of the day, there's only one president.
Yeah,